Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Veterans Day celebration. We'd like to first of all, recognize and thank the Bethel Quartet with Megan Engvall accompanying for the fine music in the cafeteria before the service here. My name is Jeff Johnson. I'll be your MC today, and it's a special honor for me to be part of the ceremony marking the 100th anniversary of the very first Veterans Day back in 1919. I'd like to thank the committee for inviting me today to be your MC. Unlike many people in this room, I have not served our country in the armed services. I grew up in a military town, Rantoul, Illinois, which was home to then what was Chanute Air Force Base. It's closed today, closed back in the 1980s. It was a very active training base when I was growing up. That was during the Vietnam War. I was 14 when that war ended. Draft had been gone by the time I turned 18. President Carter reinstated that draft back in 1980. I did promptly go down and register with the draft board, but the draft, of course, was never activated. One regret that I have today for most of my adult life is that I've never served our country in the armed services. I certainly regret that, and thank those who have. Tomorrow is actually the 100th anniversary of the very first Veterans Day. It was then called Armistice Day, marking the 1-year anniversary of the armistice that had ended World War I back in 1918. It is a day to honor the men and women who have served our great country. Today, you'll hear some remarks from a number of people. Mr. Doug Carr will be up to talk about World War II's North Platte Canteen, a story probably many of you have never heard. We'll have a video featuring Iron Ladies Fending Freedom. Today's video will feature some of those in our midst that have served. Major Bethany McClellan of the U.S. Air Force, Tammy Hayes, retired major with the Minnesota Air National Guard, and Kimberly Runnington, who is a retired first lieutenant with the U.S. Army. We'll also be hearing from the commander of the American Legion, Michelle Haas-Bornick, retired captain with the U.S. Army. We'll also hear from the Northfield Youth Choir, the Northfield High School Chorus. We'll be helped out by the Northfield Civil Air Patrol, and as you already know, doing a wonderful job is the Northfield High School Band with Barry Williams as their director. And now, the presentation of the colors by the Color Guard of the Northfield American Legion, Post 84, and VFW Post 4393.
For arms. Present arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Order, march.
We praise and bless your glorious name, O Lord, for these people who served in the armed forces of our land, that we might be protected from those who would harm us. Bless them in the vocations to which you have called them now. Continue to raise up for us brave women and men who will serve you through service to our country. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. You may be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I'd like to introduce you to the Stanton Civil Air Patrol. They're going to help us out with this next segment. I'll be narrating a POW-MIA ceremony for you this afternoon. As you enter the auditorium today, you may have noticed the table in a place of honor. It's reserved to honor members of our profession of arms who are missing from our midst. Set for 6, the empty places represent Americans, our men and women, still missing from each of the 5 services: the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and also civilians. This table symbolizes they are with us here in spirit. Some in this room were very young when these missing Americans were sent into combat. However, all Americans are called to never forget the brave men and women who answered the nation's call and served the cause of freedom in a special way. I will now explain the meaning of the items on this special table, once again with help from the Stanton Civil Air Patrol. The table is round to show our everlasting concern for our missing men and women. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their motives when answering the calls to arms, so that their children could remain free. Remember. The lone candle symbolizes the frailty of a prisoner alone, trying to stand up against his oppressors. Remember. The black ribbon on the table, candle rather, reminds us of those who will not be coming home. Remember. A single red rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the missing and the loved ones and friends of these Americans who keep the faith, awaiting their return. Remember. The Bible represents the strength through faith in our country, founded as one nation under God, to sustain those lost from our midst. Remember. The chairs are empty. They're missing. As the candle is extinguished, let us transfer its flame into our hearts. Remember. As we look upon this empty table, do not remember ghosts from the past. Remember our comrades. Remember those whom we depended on in battle. They depend on us to bring them home. Remember our friends. They are the ones we love, who love life and freedom as we do. They will remember what we do. Please honor and remember them. Thank you. It's now my pleasure to introduce our featured speaker, Mr. Doug Carr. Doug was born, raised, and educated in Lincoln, Nebraska in 1941. Immediately after graduating high school, Doug joined the Navy, hoping to see the world. The Navy had other plans for him, though. He soon found himself in Corps School and Naval Hospital. Subsequently, he was converted to an FMF Corbin, and assigned to D Company, 7th Engineers, 1st Marine Division at 29 Palms. Derry's always had a keen interest in the American story and, in particular, military history. He had 8 uncles who served around the globe in World War II. Very few stories came out of them, which spurred Doug's interest in learning little-known facts about this conflict. One such story that had little exposure is dying. His passion, though, is to keep it alive. The North Platte Canteen is one of those stories. This is his main hobby in retirement. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad to present Mr. Doug Carr.
Hope I can live up to all that. I've got a story that is very unique, and it's dying. So my function today is to heighten your awareness of what's going on, and possibly you'll tell others what happened here. Anyone here know where North Platte, Nebraska is? Yeah. Anyone here ever been to North Platte? North Platte's out there. You have to really want to go to North Platte. And the legend is absolutely true. 5 miles west of North Platte is where Columbus went off the edge. You'll notice that Scotts Bluff sign up there. That plays a big part in our story. And I'll get to that a little bit later. But those 2 towns are connected in a big way. That's the North Platte train station in 1920. There were 19 of those on the Union Pacific line. North Platte was the main service yard for the Union Pacific. That's the Omaha Challenger, and it's actually 2 engines with 1 boiler. It could haul 100 fully loaded boxcars up the Cheyenne grade at 90 miles an hour and not step to catch its breath. This engine pulled so much material and equipment and people during the war. We probably couldn't have won it without it. North Platte, Nebraska on December 7, 1941 was a town of 14,000 people, mostly cowboys, railroaders, sugar beet farmers, and merchants. And it was the commercial center for the area between Grand Island and Cheyenne. Ray Wilson is the linchpin for this whole story. She had a brother in the Nebraska National Guard who was on his way back from training. And the word was that a troop train would be coming through North Platte with about 450 troops on it. So she thought it'd be a good idea to have the citizens of North Platte show up with cookies and crackers and cakes and goodies and that sort of thing. So she organized, and with a couple of other girlfriends, wrote a letter to the publisher of the North Platte Telegraph. And it was a small town newspaper. You know, the publisher, he cleaned the toilets and swept the place out. He sold coffee, and he did it all. And he said, yes, he'd publish her letter. And December 11th, he published the first train came through, supposed to be the Nebraska National Guard, was the Kansas National Guard. 400 North Platte people showed up. But they said, well, they weren't going to keep the stuff, so they gave it through the window to the Kansas boys. But they really needed coffee. Now, the president of the railroad closed down every restaurant on the line, 19 of them, literally closed them, locked the door, left dirty dishes everywhere. They weren't making any money, and he'd get to it later. She wrote a letter to the president of the railroad in Omaha and gave it on the intercompany mail to a conductor. And about 6 hours later, that letter was on his desk. Well, you can see it on the timeline here. Things are moving. She wrote to Bull Jeffers, that was his name, William Jeffers, North Platte native. president of the railroad. Right? The 19th, he had his private car packed up, his private car attached to the back end of the next westbound train. And early the next morning, Ray Wilson is sitting in an overstuffed leather chair in front of him, and he says, "What do you want?" She says, "I want to borrow your coffee pot in your closed restaurant." "Well, what are you going to do?" He said, "Well, there's going to be some troops coming through, and when there's a train coming, we'll serve them coffee and we'll have cookies there forever." He said, "Lady, you don't have a clue what's going to happen here." "Well, but you could have not only the coffee pot and all the equipment in it, you could have the whole station." Bull Jeffers. Now you can see this guy knows how to run a railroad, right? He gave her the entire station. On top of that, Ray Wilson's father was a carpentry foreman for the Union Pacific, and he had 125 carpenters working for him. They were resurrecting old wooden boxcars in their shop because they couldn't get steel for new ones because of the war. But Bull gave her he gave her the station. He says, "Tell your dad to get you anything you want to put the station in shape for what you want to do." Okay. There's another picture of Ray Wilson. There aren't many images of her, and that's her dad. Probably the third time he's worn that suit. He's a working man, and he pulled all the strings from suppliers and everybody to get material into this canteen, and all she wanted to do was pour coffee and hand out cookies. There's a ration book. I actually have one of the real ones. Everything was rationed. Anyone remember rationing? Everything. I mean, gasoline. You couldn't buy a tire. Beef, sugar, flour. Everything was rationed. And we need something. We need sugar. We're baking cookies. And that's North Platte's right in the middle of sugar beet country. And they can't get sugar. Who can we call? Bull Jeffers. Bull, we need sugar. Can you help us? Hang on. I'll get back to you. I've heard this story a number of times, so I think it's pretty authentic. Scotts Bluff was the home office. Scotts Bluff was the home office of the Holly Sugar Company, and it was 125 miles up the road from North Platte, and the North Platte owned, the Union Pacific actually owned the trackage, the right-of-way, and they were running 2 trains of sugar a day from Scotts Bluff down to North Platte to put it on distribution trains. Bull calls his good buddy, John Larson, and here's how I've understood this for doing this for years and years. "John, Bull, oh, hi, how are things going?" "Yeah, okay. Listen, we got a canteen going down here. Heard about that. Yeah, heard you're doing some great things. John, we need sugar. How much can you give us?" "Oh, Bull, I'm sorry, but I'm contracted with the government. They want every grain of sugar I can produce. I can't help you." "Well, okay, John, I understand that. That's the way things are in wartime. Hold on a second. Accounting came in to me this morning and indicated that the contract we're under was mispriced by us. So we are going to have to make an adjustment on your contract for those 2 trains every day we're bringing down." Silence. Silence. "How much do you need, Bull?" "I need 8,000 pounds on today's train, and I need 8,000 pounds the first day of every month on my dock." "Okay, click. deal done. No committee meetings. This is a serving crew at the North Platte Canteen. 32 to 35 ladies. And look at them. They look like your grandma and your mom and your aunts and your girlfriends and your cousins and your classmates. There were 14 of these crews that volunteered 12-hour shifts every week. And you'll see some of the work they were doing. There's an interesting picture if you look at the bottom of it. The old granny shoes, remember those came from Montgomery Ward's in the mail? J.C. Penney dresses. Look at the glass milk bottles. And you don't see a paper or styrofoam cup on a serving table. There wasn't any, but Bull Jeffers restaurants had plenty of China coffee cups. They worked, and they had as big a crew in the back getting stuff ready to bring out, and also washing dishes. 4,000 sandwiches a day were produced and every church that had a kitchen and every school that had a kitchen, they had a crew working, putting together sandwiches. You don't see one plastic glove there. Okay. If they were waiting for a permit from the city, the war would be over. All right. This is once Ray Wilson's dad got his cabinet makers together, they started putting together the operation on the main floor. That would work better. Once again, China. There's a picture of generally 2 trains would come in. By the way, they were getting 8 to 10 trains a day, 400 to 450 troops per train. And I had some interesting stats when we're done. These are platform girls. And one of the things that the ladies that pulled the canteen together didn't plan on were wounded. Beginning in late 1942, wounded started coming in on hospital cars. And that's what these platform girls did. They were not allowed aboard because of bacteria scares. So they were handing treats through the windows to the wounded troopers that were on board. Kind of a heartbreaking picture, young kids. Bull Jeffers, Ray Wilson. Ray Wilson she collapsed on that platform where those ladies were working. And Bull Jeffers sent his private plane out, picked her up along with her sister, took her to another sister's home in Los Angeles where she stayed for 14 months until she recovered. She was running this place 24/7 herself. It took 5 women to replace her. There they are. And they were worn out by the time this project was done. Cold milk was a special treat. A local dairy owned by Max Swanson donated 750 bottles of cold milk a day, 7 days a week for 4 years. There's a story on how he acquired the milk, but it was Midwestern cowboy ingenuity, let's put it that way. Gene Slattery, 13 years old, went to the livestock auction once a week, sold the shirt off his back after the cows were all sold. The buyers would give him $1 or $2 for the shirt, then they'd give him the shirt back. I don't know how many times he sold it, but he raised $1,300 for the canteen. Pee Wee Picard and Robert Roberts is his name. They came down and played at the canteen every Sunday after church. Look at those wool pants and that suits they're wearing. I think they were about as uncomfortable as you could get. They played 2 hours every Sunday. KODY radio, broadcast every day, 15 minutes, telling the region what the canteen needed. If you got an extra pound of coffee, if you've got the stack of magazines, anything, bring it on down. Popcorn balls. Every Catholic church that had bingo on Wednesday nights had a basement and a popcorn machine. Girls from all over the area were making popcorn balls. A number of them would put notes inside with their name, address, and want to be a pen pal. The $100,000 is probably not the right number. 100,000 popcorn balls. It's probably closer to 500,000. But we do know that 6 marriages came out of that. Every train that pulled out, the serving crew that you saw the picture went out and waved them off. Never missed a one. Saturday Evening Post came out, wanted to take their picture, heard they're doing some great things. Nobody wanted their picture taken. Magazines. Not one publisher donated any magazines to the canteen. So the plea was out. If you've got 2, 3, 4, or a stack of magazines you're not reading anymore, bring them on down. No smut. It's got to be Collier's, Look, Time, Life, Mechanics Illustrated, that sort of thing. Take it with you on the train. Leave it on the train at your destination. Somebody, it'll find its way back. They all did. Buy an apple sailor. Here's the platform girls talking to this pharmacist mate. You tell he's going to the Marine Corps by the way he wears his cover. This is Lyda Swanson. She is the poster girl for the North Platte Canteen. She made 10 angel food cakes a week by using a scratch, and sometimes a scratch was made from scratch. And eggs were rationed. So Lyda got on the phone to a fellow whose name you're going to love, tight-fisted Scotchman, Angus McCracken. He owned a turkey ranch north of North Platte, and she called him up, crank phone. Angus, I need 6 dozen turkey eggs a week. Are you going to help us out? Sure, he says, absolutely. Come on by every Monday and pick them up. Because you needed 6 turkey eggs to make an angel food cake and 12 hen's eggs. Well, she started going out. 2 or 3 weeks later, he says, don't bother. I got a guy coming into town. I'll drop him off at your house. It's one of these things where one person had a fingerprint on this operation. GI has always said, what can we do for you? Write your mom and come home safe. The lady down on the right-hand corner with the glasses, don't know what she's doing in there. I assume she was walking by the station and saw a room full of sailors and went in there to find out what was going on. But that's a typical scene when one train was in. What do I owe you? Nothing, soldier, we owe you. That's for sure. All aboard, we're leaving. 471,000 Americans lost their lives in World War II. 203,000 of those came through North Platte. Famous picture, Marine, supposedly after a shelling of artillery from the enemy, but a famous line, very famous line was, came through the night, what I wouldn't give for 5 minutes back in North Platte. They didn't have a war industry in North Platte, so we created one. We exported morale. Ray Wilson. We don't have time to keep records. This is 1 month, the last month of operation of the canteen. 119,000 sandwiches. Okay. I don't know, I can't read it. 40,000 cookies and donuts, cakes, pounds of coffee. That was another story Bull Jeffers got in, but I didn't have the time to track that thing through here. All right? Milk and loaves of bread. Everybody baked it. They dropped it off. They dropped their loaves off. There was 2 or 10 at the Aunt Betty Bread Company. They'd run it through their slicer, wrap it up, and set all the bread out on the dock. And if your church or whoever was building sandwiches would come by daily and pick up the bread, what they needed. 125 different communities participated in the canteen. Larger towns like Grand Island, they had maybe 2 or 3 groups. Some of these little towns are gone now. They just dried up and went away, but there are towns there you might remember. Ray Wilson statue, that's what it was titled, but now it was retitled A Canteen Lady. Summarizing up here, Christmas Day of 41, April 1st of 46, hang on with both hands here. They met every single train, 16,000 plus. They fed every soldier, sailor, Marine, and airman. Served over 6 million servicemen and women. Never ran out of food. It never received a cent from Uncle Sam, not a nickel. Never sent anyone a bill. And they had $320 in their checking account. When they shut it down, they sent it to the VA. It's interesting numbers, 51 months, they never closed, 24/7 operation. 55 volunteers had their handprint on this deal. Remember the guy that was delivering the turkey eggs to Lyda Swanson? He's one of those 55,000. Everybody participated. 125 different communities. There was no payroll. Volunteers gave of their own rationing frequently. Last day of operation, Ray Wilson and Helen Christ brought down the sign with Ray's dad there, put a suit on again for the first time in 4 years. Brought down the sign. They cleaned up the station, gave it back to Bull Jeffers. No parades, no plaques, no awards. It just wasn't necessary. Union Pacific put out a 40th anniversary of the canteen for the Christmas card in '86. Here's a picture of a young man. He's 21 years old. He's already been at war for 3 years. His mother wanted his picture in a sailor suit. But he has a comment he made. He said, "To the ladies of the North Platte Canteen, thanks a million times 6. It's all gone now. A little place to sit and reflect if you so like it, but it's back to what it was when it started. A railroad yard, North Platte Canteen. I'll address any questions if you have. If not, outside, be glad to take them. That's it.
Hi, Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, the iconic World War II tune, was recorded by the Andrews Sisters on January 2nd, 1941, nearly a year before the U.S. entered the World War II, but after the start of a peacetime draft to expand the armed forces in anticipation of the American involvement. By the onset of the war, the Andrews Sisters were at the top of the charts. As the troops headed overseas, the sisters were drafted into a service in their own way, playing more USA tours than any other entertainer besides Bob Hope. They also recorded a morale-boosting victory disc for distribution to Allied forces, one of which featured their signature hit, Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. The sisters' comic veer sent messages of solidarity and cheer from the home front to the war front. Thank you.
The Northfield High School Band with Mary Williams as the director. Great job. Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to present a short video that is entitled Iron Ladies, Defending Freedom.
I'm Bethany McClellan. I served in the Air Force, in the Air National Guard. I was commissioned in May of 2007, and I separated from the Air National Guard in November of 2018.
And there's more explosions right now. Hold on, people are running.
Listen, hold on just a moment. We've got an explosion inside.
The building's exploding right now. You got people running up the street.
Okay.
What's going on?
I entered the military because of 9/11. I remember sitting in my homeroom class, and the teacher suddenly turned on the TV, and there was smoke coming out of this massive building, and we soon figured out that it was New York City. And at first we thought it was an accident. And when the second airplane flew into the second tower, we realized that it wasn't an accident. For me, that was it. I saw people trying to hurt others, trying to hurt innocent people, trying to attack our way of life, our freedom, and I couldn't stand for it. I attended the Naval Academy and I entered the United States Air Force in May of 2007 and had the opportunity to serve in a variety of ways in the Air Force. Entering the military was kind of like jumping into a cold lake after sitting on warm sand. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Had this view of the world that was very rosy and cushioned. And the reality is that there are bad people out there who want to do bad things. And I had to come to terms with that reality quickly to serve more appropriately. When I joined the Air Force, I was not prepared for what leadership actually looked like. At the Academy, we learned about leadership from books. Leadership in a textbook is nothing like leadership in real life to me. It is so much more messy in real life. There's shades of gray where on a page it's black and white. Through the military, when I received my commission, I was not a very good leader. I was very shy, very meek. I didn't like to make decisions. I would often freeze if I was uncertain about something. What really made me want to become a better leader was what that can do for a person, to the men and women that I had the honor of leading. And I did learn a lot about how managing people and leading them and actually caring about the person who's doing the work can just set you up for success, and it impacts the entire unit. I was always taught by my dad. He's the type of guy that when he talks, you listen. And he said, leaders are first in, leaders are last out, leaders eat last, leaders sleep last, and leaders listen. What is also necessary with leadership is taking care of your folks, making the decisions that you firmly believe with the information you have, but not compromise the people who are in that organization. What surprised me about leadership is that it is incredibly rewarding, even though it's incredibly difficult at times. I learned about people and I made a ton of mistakes. I learned so much from the people who I was privileged enough to lead and serve as their leader. So I learned a lot about people. I learned so much about life. I had the opportunity to be led by many, many strong men. And what I learned from those strong men is that they didn't care if I was a man or a woman. They didn't care about my religion. They didn't care about my skin color. They cared that I cared about the men and women in my charge, and that I would take care of those people so that we could take care of the mission as a team. And that meant the world to me.
Hi, my name is Tammy Hayes. I entered into the Air National Guard in 1981, and I retired from the Air Force Reserve in 2001 as a major. I got interested in the military actually by my fiance who was joining the Air National Guard, and I wanted something other. I was in college for nursing at the time, and I wanted something else to do with my life. And he was going into the Air National Guard, and when he suggested that I go in there too, I thought he was totally crazy. But apparently he knew better because I did serve the 20 years before I retired. When I went into the military, I really had no expectations. I didn't really know much about the military. I didn't have any family members in my family in the military, so it was really amazing that I didn't think about in the military is all the education, all the experiences, the leadership. And I think most of it is really the friendships that you build when you're in the military. When I got into it, it was kind of intimidating because I was a second lieutenant. Most of the nurses in the Guard unit at that time were definitely probably captain or above. So I was kind of the youngin', and then I had to be thrown into leadership and sometimes lead even them in different areas or do teaching with them. And it was kind of, it builds confidence after a while when you have that requirement to lead and teach even higher ranking officers.
Just 2 hours ago, Allied air forces began an attack on military targets in Iraq and Kuwait.
I served in Desert Shield. I worked, I was the nurse in the Air Command Center. So what I did is put together all the airback flights and making sure that the crews knew what kind of patients they were getting, what kind of equipment they needed for those flights. After Desert Storm started, I was on a flight crew out of there, and we did channel missions, picking up patients from massives along the Iraqi border. When the war actually started, I can still remember that night because we had to put on all our chem gear and everything, and we knew it was going on, and I think we were further enough from the front. I mean, we were fairly safe. It was a great learning experience, and it's something that is so different that most people don't understand being deployed. I think the only regret that I have, and it was only for a short period of time, I got out of the military, retired in August of 2001, before 9/11. So I think that was difficult, not being in the military and having my friends from my unit being activated and staying in. And so that was a little hard for me. I think time since I've been out, it's been, you know, you think, oh, I kind of miss it and want to get back in, but then other life things keep you from doing that. But I think that would be the only kind of regret I had. If I would have been in a little longer, I don't know if I would have got out as soon. For most of my career, I was a flight nurse with 109th. We had a very tight group. I still keep in contact with many of the people that I served with. I think you meet people and you form bonds a little different when you're deploying or you're going to training, and you form quicker friendships when you're on a deployment, I think, or in the military, just because you need to, because you're put with these groups fairly quickly. Our mantra when I was in the 109th is that you work hard and then you play hard, and you can keep on doing that. When you have to really work hard, everybody pitches in and you really work hard. But then you have downtime and then you do that team building. And I think that is really important. And I think a lot of times in the military you do that better than you do in civilian jobs, from what I've seen. You kind of control your own destiny in the military. You can go as far as you want and go as many leadership positions as you want. There's always learning opportunities and more experiences that I think I would have never had if I wasn't in the military. I've met the most amazing people. I was given opportunities to go to a lot of education that I wouldn't have had if I didn't do that, and see places I would never been able to. Yeah, I can't imagine a better way to do it than being in the military.
My name is Kimberly Runnigan. I was in the United States Army. I joined in 1993 and I got out of the Army in 2000. I came in as a private first class and did a break-in service, went to college, and came back in as a second lieutenant. So I grew up as an Army brat. My father was a pilot. It's all I ever knew. For me, It was just life as I knew it. It was hard sometimes to have my dad be in the Army because he was gone a lot. He deployed twice to Vietnam, each time for a year. In high school, I had decided I really liked business. I liked accounting. So my goal was, at that time, was to become a certified public accountant. So I started college, was doing okay, going to class. I was on my own for the first time. I was working at a bank, and I wanted to advance in the bank and work at different positions there, but I didn't have the schooling. So I just weighed my options, didn't want to go back to school. I decided maybe the Army wasn't such a bad deal, and I went into a recruiter and talked to him, and if I was going to join, I was going to be a finance clerk or an accounting clerk, which luckily they had what I wanted. So when I was finished with my training, I was stationed at Fort Polk, Louisiana. They needed a finance clerk to go to on a deployment with a unit that was there. Within 2 or 3 months of me being there, I was deployed to Saudi Arabia as a brand new finance clerk. So my son joining the Army, he talked about being a soldier. He watched his dad. My husband was in the Army as well. So I think he just always knew it was an option. But it's a little different to have my dad and my grandpa join the Army. It was a lot different to watch my son swear, to defend this country and leave. I thought I was completely ready and that it was, this is good for him, he needs to do it, but it's affected me a lot more emotionally than I thought it would. I know he's going to be successful. That part I'm not concerned about. It's knowing what's going on in the world today and that he may be called to deploy. My deployments weren't combat related. I was there not during the active conflict. He could very well be right in the middle of something, and it will be very concerning for me. It's a lot different to look at the world and what's happening and know that now my son might have to go. Military service is definitely a lot of my identity. It's still deeply rooted. I was born into it, and it built my confidence. It built my character. It helped me be the person that I am today. And going through it myself helped me to understand what my dad went through when he, deployed, when he was in Vietnam, what my grandpa went through. Along with that goes also the different roles that I've had. I've been the dependent as a child. I've been in myself as an enlisted person, as an officer. I've been the spouse, but now I'm the mom. It's kind of full circle for me. And I look at my parents, my mom and my grandmother, and I see what they went through when Grandpa was deployed, when my dad was deployed, and how different things were for me when my husband was deployed. And it just makes me look back and really be so proud of them and what they went through and how difficult that it was for them. The lineage, grandpa, brother, husband, cousins, brother-in-laws, it's not a planned thing. It's just, for us, it's probably just an option that's there that maybe other people don't think. They're like, oh, I could never do that. I could never go through basic training and do the things that you said you had to do. I'm super proud to tell people about, the service that my family has done. I haven't ever sat down and added up the years, but that might be an interesting thing to see actually how many years has my family committed to the, defending of this country.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, families, friends, and veterans. And happy birthday, United States Marine Corps. Thank you all for gathering this afternoon as we take a brief moment to honor the selfless heroes who have served this country and who continue to serve in our communities across this nation. And this year, I would like to specifically recognize the contributions of women veterans. You represent the best of who we are as Americans and are important figures in the history of our nation, as well as for role models for future generations. Now, I was going to start my speech explaining what Veterans Day is, but Jeff did a fantastic job with that. So I'm going to go on to talk about when Veterans Day officially became a holiday. Like Jeff said, Armistice Day was started in 1918 was the end of the war, 1919 was the beginning of Armistice Day. It had continued to have that title until 1954 when Congress changed the name of the holiday to Veterans Day to include all veterans in United States wars. Today, Americans honor the service and sacrifices of our armed forces in the past as well as the present on Veterans Day. At 11 in the morning on November 11th, Americans are encouraged to observe a moment of silence to remember those who fought for freedom. As a veteran, I look at this day as a day of celebration, celebrating our commitment to this nation, our commitment to one another, and our decision to be part of something greater than ourselves, to be part of a small group of Americans with a bond that can never be broken. Today, we are taking about an hour out of our week to recognize our veterans. And tomorrow, we may take that moment of silence at 11 a.m., but it's important to remember that our military and our veterans have defended the freedoms of this country for 365 days a year. The heroism that has been demonstrated time and time again by veterans, the American Revolution to the global war on terrorism, is sometimes unnoticed by those of us who enjoy the security of their sacrifices have provided. You all just watched the videos of 3 extraordinary women. Women who either continued their family tradition of proud military service or started a legacy for their own families. These women raised their right hand and promised our nation they would give their lives to ensure Americans continue to live in freedom. All veterans have done this. They have signed their name, promised to protect this country by offering their own life if needed, and did so willingly. No soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine knows if they are going to see combat, but they offer themselves unconditionally to this country. This is why all veterans are honored today. We are all brothers and sisters of the United States of America, where color, creed, religion, and gender make us stronger, more empathetic towards others, and more accepting of the different roles in which we serve. Today, the talent and skills of women veterans have made the contributions of our military to our allies and our fellow Americans run deeper than ever before. They are proudly serving in jobs that were once thought to be for men only. We now have women who serve in the infantry, in the cavalry, on submarines, who hold the title of Ranger, who fly with the Blue Angels, who are leading traditional male companies, who have been chosen to lead combat commands, and who have earned the titles of General and Admiral. With this change, and as the role of women in the military continues to expand, Veterans Day is the perfect time to recognize the thousands of women who fight to protect our country and how this new modern-day warrior is forcing changes in the services, programs, and culture facing our veterans. Women make up approximately 15% of our active duty force and 10% of the veteran population, currently the fastest growing veteran demographic. The number of female veterans treated at the VA almost tripled between 2000 and 2015. Understandably, the roles of women into the male-dominated healthcare system has had its challenges, but once again, women veterans are out here advocating for themselves and for their fellow veterans, knowing the number of women serving is on the rise and the demand for care is only going to increase. Just as our servicemen and women have taken care of us, it is now the sacred duty of us to be there for our heroes when they need us the most. As women transition out of the military, they return to their families, often starting families of their own. They go back to jobs where they find success in business, medicine, engineering, politics, and technology. They take the skills they learned while wearing the uniform and turn them into valuable skills for our society. Most of all, when they leave the military, they never lose their patriotism or their sense of public duty. They are fixtures in our communities and an inspiration to young girls who also wish to grow up and serve. Although we are focusing on female veterans during this ceremony, I do not want to slight our male veterans. I am a girl who believes there is enough gratitude to share with everyone. And as a commander of the Northfield American Legion and a member of the VFW, I am also proud of the men who generously serve this country and their communities, who promote the leadership of women in veteran organizations, and who show unwavering commitment to our nation's children. Women veterans would not be where we are today without the support, encouragement, and positive influence of those men who believed in the potential of the women they served with. They should also be honored and not forgotten on this day. You can say serving might be a little bit of a tradition in our family. Not only am I a veteran and a retired military officer, I am proud to say I'm the granddaughter of a World War II veteran, the daughter-in-law of a Navy veteran, the proud wife of a veteran, my husband Brian, and my hero, the soon-to-be mother-in-law of, yes, I said mother-in-law, of an active duty Army soldier, and the mother of an ROTC cadet. I love knowing that my family has proudly served the greatest nation on earth. I love listening to my 4-year-old daughter proclaim that she will be a military helicopter pilot when she grows up. And I love knowing that in this country, that little girl's big dreams are possible. They are possible because of those women who have come before, fulfilling their own destinies and making a path for future generations to follow. In closing, I do want to specifically say thank you to the women veterans here today. Even though you may not have always known it, you are breaking ground for women who will serve after you. This nation owes you an unbelievable debt of gratitude. Thank you for your leadership and your tremendous source of patriotism in our communities. To all veterans, thank you just isn't enough. We often take for granted the very things that deserve our most gratitude. Because you stood up and said, yes, I will serve too. Our nation is stronger, our freedoms run deeper, and our liberty is richer. God bless you for protecting this country. Thank you for protecting all Americans, and may God bless each of you here today as he continues to bless the United States of America. Thank you.
I'd like to now bring back Pastor Klein for the benediction.
We stand for prayer. Almighty and everlasting God, your providence has given to us this great land. Bless, we pray, the members of our military as they perform the duties of their calling. Give them not only true love of country, but also love for you and an understanding of your love for all humanity. Relying on your aid, may they courageously defend our nation from every enemy and be a means of fostering mutual respect and understanding among the peoples of the world. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is our program for this afternoon. We want to thank you very much for coming. I'd like to thank Dan on sound. We appreciate his help. Dan, a lot of you know his grandfather, Bob Jacobson. I don't know Dan's last name, but I want to thank him. Also, we invite everyone to come out for some more food as you leave. And also, if there are any Marines out there that would like to help cut the cake out there, please stop on by. But once again, thank you so much for attending our Veterans Day services here in 2019.